It is to labor variance. Now, if you see the last two attempts there is no question on labor variance. So, sir, can I expect for the coming examiner? Yes, lot of chances of asking labor variance. But because of this COVID-19 and the problem still material variance kepana. But labor variance in the last two attempts, you can see only material variance. Labor variance chances coming exam they can ask labor variance also. Now, but labor variance hardly how many sums mark? All models, similar model. Total we have 8 sums only. And the 8 sums, see, 8 sums, the third one is only an objective type question. So effectively we have 7 sums. 7 sums, you can expect 1 sum. Okay. Now standard costing, there are two labor variances. There are 2 types of questions that can be asked. Problems without idle time variance. Problems without idle time variance and problems with idle time variance. So first one, problems without idle time variance, Popo. 3 columns. Students, you have to change, slight change, modification. Standard quantity into standard price. That's standard hours into standard rate per hour. Actual hours into actual rate per hour. And then the same, actual hours into standard rate. Close up follow pananga. First one is SQ, standard quantity for actual production. Here it is standard hours for actual production. Same ade model da. Now for example, sir, standard for producing 1 unit of finished product, 4 hours is the standard time. 4 hours for 1 unit standard on the for 1 unit 4 hours. Actual production 800 units. About what should be the standard hours for actual production? Sir, for 1 unit 4 hours, for 800 units 3200 hours, sir. Correct. But actual hours can be different. Actual hours 3500. See the standard time allowed for 800 units. The standard time allowed for 800 units should be 4 into 800, 3200. But actual hours taken 3500 hours. So the efficiency variance will be adverse. Efficiency variance in a time allowed, standard time allowed is 3200 hours, whereas they have taken 3500 hours. So the workers have taken 300 hours more to complete 800 units. Therefore, the efficiency of the workers is adverse. So what are the in the Mari? First column is standard hours. So wage rate on the for example 15 per hour. So all columns standard hours into standard rate, actual hours into actual rate, actual hours into standard rate. Okay. Now suppose sometimes it is 15 per day. Then you have to change the standard hours standard days for actual production, actual days for actual production. Then in days are this is standard rate per day, actual rate per day, standard rate per day. Sometimes it can be say 100 rupees per week. Then it should be standard weeks for actual production, actual weeks. But majority of the problems will be on standard hours. So first column, standard hours for actual production into standard rate, actual hours into actual rate, actual hours standard rate. 1 minus 2 is labor cost variance. 1 minus 2 is labor cost variance. The labor cost variance can be divided into labor rate variance, and labor efficiency variance. This is 1 minus 2. This is 3 minus 2. This is 1 minus 3. 1 minus 2, 3 minus 2, 1 minus 3. So, so standard hours into standard rate, actual hours into actual rate, actual hours into standard rate. So you will get 1 minus 2. This is standard cost, is the actual cost. Standard cost, actual cost. Material variance marida, labor cost variance. And the difference between 3 minus 2 is rate. And the difference between 1 minus 3 is efficiency. Right? Now, students, if there is more than one raw material, raw material A, raw material B, raw material C, this will give rise to fourth column is required. Fourth column is required. Adla the mix variance and yield variance mix variance and yield variance Similarly, if there is more than one type of labor, நம்ம போடுற sumல men, women and boys, or அதே மாதிரி some other sum like skilled, semi-skilled, correct, unskilled, இந்த மாதிரிலாம் போட்டோம். So, when there is more than one type of labor, there are some other problems like grade 1 labor, grade 2 labor, in the mari some problems of this type. Grade 3 labor. So, whenever if you have more than one type of labor in force, then fourth column is required. What is the fourth column? Normally revised standard quantity into standard price. Material aranda. Here it is revised standard as into standard rate. What is revised standard as? What is revised standard quantity? So revised standard quantity means total actual quantity in standard ratio, in standard proportion. Adhe mari here total actual hours in standard proportion. Adhe dama. So it will not change. So the fourth column. Now if any variances, labor cost variance is 1 minus 2. Rate variance is 3 minus 2. Okay, efficiency variance is 1 minus 3. And efficiency variance can be divided into labor gang variance or otherwise labor mixed in or otherwise labor composition variance. All are one and the same. Gang mixed composition. So on the gang, how many standard, when there is a difference between standard composition and actual composition. 10 men, 5 women, 5 boys. But actually on the 12 men, 3 women and 7 boys. Appo composition la change agudhu. So it leads to gang variance. Adanal efficiency change agum. Mix variance or gang variance or composition variance. The other one is labor yield variance. Yield variance appadina labor revised efficiency variance. So in the body. So 1 minus 2, 3 minus 2, 1 minus 3, 4 minus 3 and 1 minus 4. Same students, adeda. So these are the 4 columns when there is no idle time variance. When there is no idle time variance. So either you can do it. First sum is easy question. Ningle practice pannalam. Now here it is. For computation of mix or gang variance, for computation of mix variance or gang variance or composition variance and yield variance, fourth column is required. Mix or gang will arise only if there is more than one type of labor in use. Allow the men, women, boys, though skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled. Correct? So the fourth column is revised standard hours into standard rate. Revised standard hours is as usual total actual hours in standard proportion. So problem on gang and yield, fourth column which in the sum na solve pannirken. So you can try the sum, and students you can see here December 17, December 18, December 17 and December 18. So give importance to this problem. Onmela standard 75 workers, 45 workers, 60 workers. They have to work for how many weeks? 30 weeks. So standard, first column standard hours into standard rate. And weekly wage rate weekly wage rate weekly 60 rupees, 40 rupees. So the first column is standard weeks for actual production into standard rate per week. So 75 into 30, 45 into 30, 60 into 30. That's standard weeks for actual production. The details regarding the composition, the gang composition and the weekly wage rates. Now, this is careful. Hourly rates, weekly wage rates. of labor force engaged on a job scheduled to be completed 30 weeks la complete பண்ண வேண்டிய ஒரு particular job they completed in 32 weeks. In other words, sir, they completed in 32 weeks for which the standard time allowed was only 30 weeks. So 32 weeks complete பண்ணிருக்காங்க. Actually they should have done in, so இதுதான் standard weeks for actual production. So 75 into 30 weeks, 45 into 30 weeks, 60 into 30 weeks multiplied by weekly wage rate. ஆனா actual வந்து 70 into 32, 30 into 32, 80 into 32 multiplied by actual weekly wage rate. Funding in a first column, second column, third column, and the fourth column. So 1 minus 2, labor cost, labor rate 3 minus 2, labor efficiency 1 minus 3, labor revised efficiency or yield variance 1 minus 4, and labor gang or composition or mixed variance 4 minus 3. So, sir, what should have been completed in 30 weeks? The job was completed. So, time allowed 30 weeks, time taken 32 weeks. So 30 weeksல முடிக்க வேண்டிய ஒரு job 32 weeksல complete பண்ணிருக்காங்க. So first column standard weeks into standard weekly wage. So SW ன்னு போட்டுக்கோங்க. Standard weeks into standard rate. Standard rate per week. So 75 into 30, 45 into 30, 60 into 30 into week standard rate. அதே மாதிரி ஆக்சுவல் வந்து 70 into 32 ஒர்க் பண்ணிருக்காங்க. 30ல முடிக்கணும், but they worked in 32. 30 into 32, 80 into 32, and the weekly wage rate, you will get the answer. சரியா? Now, third sum you can do it as one of the small objective type question. Now, the idle time variance. Idle time variance எதனால வருது? See, the workers efficiency, நான் சொன்னேன் sometimes like for example, ஒரு நிமிஷம், I'll show you. See, for example, standard time allowed 1000 hours, but actual time taken 1350 hours. இப்போ என்ன ஆச்சு? 350 hours extra. Correct? So efficiency of the workers is adverse because their time taken is more than the time allowed. Time taken, so the efficiency of the workers is adverse. The efficiency of the workers on the adverse. But later on, if you see, the reason was 350 hours is not because of workers. The 350 hours, I'll time allowed 1000 hours, time taken 1350 hours. இதுல time loss, total loss on the 350 இல்லையா? 350 hours, sir, because of idle time, that is idle time in a mission breakdown, power failure. Correct? So அந்த மாதிரி because of this 225 hours were lost, sir. 350 hours extra time taken is 350 hours extra, but the 350 is not because of worker அப்படின்னு சொல்ல முடியாது. Because of idle time 225, worker cannot do anything. Mission breakdown, what worker will do? So this 225 is called idle time. Appo out of 350, 225 is because of idle time. Now workers inefficiency will be 125. Still it is adverse only. Still it is adverse. And one more thing, idle time variance, students, idle time variance will always be adverse. Idle time variance will always be adverse. Correct? புரிஞ்சுக்கோங்க. ஏன்னா mission breakdown அப்படின்னா அது adverse தான் இருக்க முடியும். We are losing hours, so it will be adverse. Power failure, it will always be adverse. Correct? But now one more example. See, 1000 hours. Standard time allowed. Or 1 second. Standard time allowed 1000 hours. Actual time taken 1200 hours. Okay. So what is the extra time taken? 200 hours extra time. And idle time is, say your example, 240 hours. What do you mean? About efficiency? Can you tell me efficiency, will it be adverse or favorable? Efficiency can be adverse or efficiency can be favorable. Workers, sir, 1200 hours, 240 hours idle time. So we completed the 1200 hours, 240 hours idle time. We completed the job in 960 hours. In fact, we are saving 40 hours. So efficiency will be favorable. Actually, 1000 hours. Now time taken is 1200, but 1200 240 on the mission breakdown. If you exclude mission breakdown, now 960 hours we completed the job for which 1000 hours allowed. Standard time allowed for the job is 1000 hours, but we completed in 960 hours in spite of losing 240 hours, which is not because of workers' inefficiency. So power failure, mission breakdown, 240 hours, coach. In spite of losing 240 hours, we completed the job in 960, for which standard time allowed is 1000. So here workers' efficiency will be favorable. Idle time will always be adverse. So idle time will always be adverse. But efficiency variance can be plus or can be minus. For 960, 1000 hours to முடிக்க job, 960 hours and they lost 240 hours because of idle time. Since they completed in 960 hours, your workers' efficiency will be favorable, but idle time will always be adverse. Now, if you break down all this, first labor cost variance, labor rate variance, labor efficiency variance. This is total. That is, it includes both idle time and workers. This includes idle time and workers. Now, either one you can split. Labor efficiency variance, this is because of workers. Correct? The net you can say net. Labor efficiency variance because of workers and labor idle time variance. This is always adverse. Always adverse. This can be favorable or adverse. So, this 1 minus 2, 3 minus 2, 1 minus 3, 1 minus 4. This is 4 minus 3. And then in the efficiency, net can further be divided into gang and yield. Gang is last column minus the previous column, 5 minus 4. Last column minus the 1 minus gang variance 4 minus 3 in portfolio. Gang variance 4 minus 3. Last column minus the previous column. Gang and yield variance first column minus the last column 1 minus 5. So what are the columns, ma'am? First one is standard hours into standard rate, actual hours into actual rate, actual hours into standard rate, actual hours worked into standard rate. What is actual hours work? Actual hours worked. Sir, actually 1000 hours we should work, but we worked only for 960. 40 hours were lost due to idle time. So, this is the actual hours. This is the actual hours worked. And this is idle time. So, the difference between 960 and 1000. 1000 hours work panirukano, 960, 40 hours we lost. So, difference between 960 and 1000. This is 960, ma'am. And this is 1000. Another 4 minus 3 will give you 40 adverse. 4 minus 3 idle time variance. And last one on the revised standard hours into standard rate. So now 1 minus 2. 1 minus 2 is cost variance. 3 minus 2 is rate variance. 1 minus 3, it is total efficiency variance. Then 1 minus 4, efficiency variance. Actual efficiency variance on account of workers. Adukapram 4 minus 3. it is idle time, and then 5 minus 4, last column minus the previous column is mix or gang always. 4 columns on the 4 minus 3. That's all. 4 minus 3. 4 column la 4 minus 3 is gang. 5 column la, see both the cases last column minus the previous column is called 4 minus 3, 5 minus 4. 4 minus 3, it is mixed variance, and last one is first column minus the last column, that is the yield variance, or otherwise called revised efficiency variance, or first column minus the fourth column. So first column minus the last column, first column minus the last column. So this is the what is fourth column here? Revised standard hours, that goes in that fifth column. What is taken as fourth column here, the revised standard hours into standard rate, the fifth column revised standard standard. Another 1 minus 5 or the yield variance, and 5 minus 4 is your mix or gang. So it's a detailed sum. So now you can go through this. So labor cost variance, here it is standard hours into standard rate, actual hours into actual standard hours into standard rate, and standard rate per hour. Actual hours into actual rate per hour, actual hours into standard rate per hour, actual hours worked, WORKED, into standard rate per hour, revised standard hours into standard rate, labor cost variance, rate variance, efficiency variance again. Sir, what is the difference between this? Is gross efficiency variance might includes total loss or total, it includes both idle time and workers. So I'll split to the workers and idle time. அதுக்கப்புறம் இந்த efficiency variance இருக்கு இல்லையா, the net efficiency variance, that is the total of mix and yield. So the net efficiency variance, if you add mix and yield, you will get mix and yield add பண்ணீங்கன்னா you will get net efficiency variance. So here it is labor cost variance is equal to rate plus efficiency. Efficiency variance is equal to efficiency net plus gang plus idle time variance. If you add everything, you will get efficiency variance net. Sorry, idle time variance shall always be adverse. Idle time variance shall always be adverse. Now I'll explain 1 minute. In the sum konjam nalla question. Two problems na explain pandren, two sums na explain pandren. First, go through this problem. We'll take a break. We'll take a 3-4 minutes break, and then we'll continue. It's just paranga. Ready, ma'am? Start பண்ணலாம் students. Hello. Now, what is important in this arena? The standard hours for actual production. Standard hours for actual production. The first column is clear. Now see, listen. 10 men, 5 women and 5 boys. Standard proportion is 10 is to 5 is to 5. That is 2 is to 1 is to 1. 10 men, 5 women and 5 boys. In a normal working week of 40 hours, the gang is expected to produce 1000 units. 10 men, 5 women, 5 boys. Total how many employees, how many workers? 20. Each worker has to work for 40 hours. And the gang is expected to produce 1000 units. See, 10 men, 5 women, 5 boys. Total 20 workers. If they work for 40 hours each in a week, appo 20 into 40, 800 hours in a week, the gang is expected to produce 1000 units. அப்படின்னு சம்ல கொடுத்திருக்கான். This is called standard production. Standard. 800 hours la 1000 units. How did you get 800 hours? Sir, total 20 workers in the gang. 20 workers. 20 workers in the gang. Okay. And each worker 40 hours in a week. Or a week. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, each day 8 hours, 8 into 5, 40. So 20 into 40, 800 hours. The gang is expected to produce 1000 units. The gang is expected to produce 1000 units. But the gang எவ்வளோ produce பண்ணிருக்காங்க? The 2 hours per week were lost and 960 units of output. Only 960 units were produced. 960 units, sir. 960 units. Actual production is 960. So what should be the standard hours for actual production? For 1000 units, 800 hours. For 1000 units, 800 hours. For actual production, how many hours? So time allowed 800 hours for 1000 units. But actual production 960. So 960 into 800 divided by 1000. 960 into 800 divided by 1000 is equal to 7. So first column standard hours into standard rate, which is 768. This is the men, women and boys. Men, women and boys. The standard hours into standard rate. The 768 மூணு பேருக்கும் பிரிக்கணும் in the ratio of, so standard hours 768 is the men, women, boys in the ratio of 10 is to 5 is to 5. Standard proportion or 2 is to 1 is to 1. So in the ratio of பிரிச்சிங்கன்னா 768 into 2 by 4. So it is 384. In the 384 into 192 into 192 into, so like this is the standard hours for actual production. So 20 workers, each working 20 workers in the gang, each working for 40 hours, total 800 hours. The gang is expected to produce 1000 units, but actual production 960. SH means standard hours for actual production. So 768 hours they should have completed 960. 768 hours இது முடிச்சிருக்கணும். The 768 in the ratio of 10 is to 5 is to 5. So men 384 hours, women 192 hours, boys 192 hours. Is the standard rate is given. So standard rate is 1.25, 0.8, 0.7. And then actual hours 13 men, 4 women, 3 boys. So 13 into 40, 4 into 40, actual hours 3 into 40. 13 into 40, 4 into 40, 3 into 40. In a normal working week of 40 hours, in a normal working week of 40 hours, the gang is expected. Okay. So 13 men actual hours 520, 4 into 40, 160, 3 into 40, 120. So this is called actual hours. Into actual rate 1.2, 0.85, 0.65. அதுக்கப்புறம் fourth column actual hours worked. So 2 hours per week were lost. So total of 40 hours, 2 hours per week were lost. Total 40 hours, 2 hours were lost. So 40 minus 2, 38. 40 minus 2 is 38. So 38 actual hours worked. Actual hours worked 13 into 38, 4 into 38, 3 into 38. Actual hours 40 into 13, 40 into 4, 40 into 3. Actual hours worked 38 into 13 because 2 hours were lost per week. So 40 hours, 2 hours idle time. So each worker worked only for 38. 38 into 13, 38 into 4, and 38 into 3. You will get actual hours into standard, actual hours worked into standard rate. And last term, revised standard hours. Now students inga konjam careful ah irukanum. What is revised standard hours? Revised standard hours, revised standard hours is equal to total actual hours in standard proportion. But be careful, this is not exactly correct. Total actual hours, total actual hours work, because actual hours they are expected to work for 40 hours in a normal working week, but actual hours worked on the 38. So the 38 you have total actual hours work in standard proportion. Total actual hours work in standard proportion. Correct? So this is the answer. And then you will get first column, second column, first column, second column, third column, fourth column, and fifth column. So 1 minus 2 is cost, 3 minus 2 is rate, 1 minus 3 is efficiency, total efficiency variance. Total efficiency variance. Adula 1 minus 4 is workers efficiency, favorable or adverse and theriyum. 1 minus 4, standard hours allowed, actual hours work. So 960 you will ask, we have to complete the job. 960 units, we have to complete the job in 768 hours, but we completed in this hour. So the difference efficiency, workers efficiency, 1 minus 4. And 4 minus 3 is idle time. 4 minus 3 is idle time. And last column is revised standard hours minus this column is the gang variance or the mix variance or the composition variance. And 1 minus 4 or 1 minus 5. 1 minus 4 is yield variance. That is in 4 column. 1 minus 5 is yield variance or revised efficiency variance. So in the mari varum. So be careful and you can do it. Practice panna idu easy andrum. Now one more sum number 5. Sum number 5. Can you tell me what is standard hours for actual production? The following was the composition of a gang of workers in a factory during a particular month in one of the production departments. The standard composition of workers and wage rates per hour. 2 skilled, 4 semi-skilled, 4 unskilled. Skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled. Skilled, semi-skilled, unskilled. 2 plus 4 plus 4, 10. 2 plus 4 plus 4, 10. Total number of workers 10. Total number of workers in the gang 10. Correct? The standard output of the gang was 4 units per hour. Gang level 2, 4, 4, 10. If they work for 1 hour each, last sum if they work for 20 workers, if they work for 40 hours each, 20 workers, if they work for 40 hours each, they are expected to produce 1000. Here, total are 10 workers. Last sum 20 workers. Here 10 workers. Last sum 40 hours work panna 1000. 1 hour work panna 4 units. That is what the standard output of the gang was 4 units per hour. And the actual production was 810 units of the product. So students, if you look total total 2 skilled, 4 semi-skilled, 4 unskilled. Total is 10. If they work for 1 hour each, 10 into 1, 10 hours they are expected to produce 4 units. Appo 810 units 810 into 10 divided by 4 is equal to 2025 hours. This is for actual production. This is called standard hours. Standard hours for actual production. Actual production is 810. Sir, 10 hours la 4 units. 10 hours la, how did you get 10 hours? Yes, sir, the gang has 2 skilled, 4 semi-skilled and 4 unskilled. 10 workers, total 10 workers. If they work for 1 hour each, total 10 workers, 10 into 1, 10 hours of the total gang, 10 hours of the total gang, they are expected to produce 4. Actual production is 810. 810 into 10 by 4 is 2025 hours. Now, this is the skilled, semi-skilled and unskilled. This is the ratio 2 is to 4 is to 4, 1 is to 2 is to 2. So, 2025 divided by 10 into 2, 405, 810, 810. This is the standard hours for actual production. And then as usual, standard rate, standard hours for actual production into standard rate. Standard rate என்ன கொடுத்திருக்கான்? Standard rate is 20, 12, 8. 20. அப்புறம் actual hours, sir, actual hours 2 into 200, 3 into 200, 5 into 200 into actual rate. Fourth column, actual hours worked. You can see the gang was engaged for 200 hours during the month, which included 12 hours when no production was possible due to mission breakdown. So 200 hours like 12 hours pochuna, actual hours work is 188. 200 actual hours minus idle time, actual hours worked 188. So 2 into 188, 3 into 188, 5 into 188. 200 minus 12, 188. 200 minus 12, 188 into 2, 188 into 3, 188 into 5. That's actual hours worked. Revised standard hours is equal to total actual hours worked. The 188 into 2, 188 into 3, 188 into 5. That's the total in the ratio of standard proportion 2 is to 4 is to 4. You will get revised standard hours. And now the answer 1 minus 2, 3 minus 2, 1 minus 3. And then efficiency, total efficiency you can divide into efficiency net 1 minus 4, idle time variance 4 minus 3, and then 5 minus 4 is 5 minus 4 is gang or mix, and 1 minus the last column. In case of 4 column, it is 1 minus 4. In case of 5 column, it is 1 minus 5 as the yield variance or revised efficiency variance. So, in the Marida, you have to solve. Okay, 1 minute, students. Hello, any question, Maidala? Specific, any question on this? So, what is important? The first column, you must understand in sum number 4 and sum number 5. First column alone, you must understand. Adhe sum number 6, if you see the standard output of production X is 25 units per hour. In a manufacturing department of company employing 100 workers. So 100 workers, if they join together, understand all 100 workers as a gang, if they work for 1 hour, they are expected to produce 25. 100 into 1, all the 100 workers into 100 hours is equal to 25 units per hour. 100 into 100 hours, 100 workers, each 1 hour. So 100 hours is equal to 25 units. About 1040 units, how many hours? 1040 into, so you do it, you will get the answer. Okay, so there is no question of gang variance because it is only one type of labor. Here it is only one type of labor. So you require the first column, second column, third column, fourth column for idle time variance, because here you can see despite 5% of the time paid was lost due to an abnormal reason. That is called idle time. So first column, standard hours into standard rate, actual hours into actual rate, actual hours into standard rate, actual hours worked, actual hours worked. Actual hours worked on the 42 hours weekly. 5%, 42 into 100, 42 into 100, 4,200. 4,200 la 5%, 210 hours gone, idle time. Fifth column is not required. Fifth column is revised standard hours and standard rate. Adu thevilla because there is no only one type of labor. Therefore, the question of composition variance, gang variance will not arise. So fifth column you can ignore it. It is not required. Students, hello. So இது இனிமேல் நீங்க போட்டுருவீங்களா?
Sir.
ஆ.
Sir, sixth sumla வந்து 25 units they produce in 100 hours, no sir?
Correct.
So how many workers are there? We have to proportionate the time according to the workers, sir.
Let's see, listen, 1 minute. The standard output of production X is 25 units per hour. Okay. 25 units per hour. How many workers? Say 100 workers, if they join together, they are required to produce 25 units. If you are 1 minute. So how many workers? 100 workers join together. Okay. If they as a gang, if they work for an hour, which is 100 into 1, each 1 hour work பண்ணாங்கன்னா in 100 hours equivalent, the gang is expected to produce 25 units. That's all. So now what is the actual production? Actual production is 1040 units. Sir, actual production is 1040 units. Okay. How many hours time allowed for 1040? Answer is 1040 into 100 divided by 25. Sir, 4160 hours allowed. But avanga work pan 100 வந்து 42 hours, 4200. Again 4200. And idle time extra actual hours worked. This is actual hours. Correct? This is actual hours. Whereas actual hours worked is 4,200 minus 5%. Correct? Minus 5%. 5% was lost due to 4,200 minus 210. 5% is 210. So 4,200 minus 210 pochina 3,990 they have worked. So the difference between fourth column and the third column, 3,990 minus 4,200, 210 hours lost, and standard rate developer. Standard rate is 6 rupees per hour. So if you have the answer, you can see 6 rupees per hour. 4 minus 3 will give you this answer. 1,260 will be the idle time variance. This number 4 minus 3 in pota varum. So 4 minus 3 is the idle time variance. You will get 1,260. So 100 workers join together. If they work for 1 hour as a gang, they are expected to produce 25 units. அப்ப 1040 னா அவங்க 4160 hours-லயே complete பண்ணணும். They have to complete in 4160, but they completed in 3990. 4160 hours-ல முடிக்க வேண்டியது 3990 தான் they have worked. அப்படின்னா if you have the answer, you can see efficiency 1 minus 4 will be plus. பாருங்க, because what should have been completed in 4160, they completed in 3990. So they have saved. எவ்வளவு மணி நேரம் சேவ் பண்ணிருக்காங்க? 4160 minus 3990 into 6. In fact, efficiency net will be 1020 favorable. If you have the answer, you can say. So அப்படி மாதிரி work பண்ணலாம். Hello students. Okay. Now listen, in these two sums are important, ma'am. One which was asked in the examination. இது திருப்பி நீங்க ட்ரை பண்ணுங்க. இந்த December 17 and December 18. This sum is institute study material sum also. That's important. And these two are also important. 4 and 5 are equally important. And then this is sometime ஒரே வாட்டி இது வந்து syllabus 2012. அப்பலாம் வந்து 10 marks sum இது 10 marks 9 marks sum. Nowadays there is no 9 marks or a 10 marks sum. So this you can try, students. இதுல வந்து you have to calculate the actual number of workers, skilled workers, semi-skilled workers and unskilled workers, and do it. That's all. The mixed variances is a combination of both. அது நீங்களே பார்த்துக்கலாம். So try this. The important sums are in this. The important sums are actually sum number 2 is very important. Sum number 4 and 5 important. and then sum number 7 and 8. That's all. 4 sums நீங்க ட்ரை பண்ணா போதும். 4 sums நீங்க ட்ரை பண்ணா போதும். Hello? Anybody else? Sure. Now I'll move on to the next